At Thanksgiving dinner, my grandfather looked straight at me and said, "So, how are you finding the house we bought you after high school?" I just stared at him. "What house?" My father choked on his wine. My mother went paper white. The room fell silent. I could feel 20 sets of eyes staring at me, waiting, and I realized something was very, very wrong. "What house?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. My grandfather, William Hartley, one of the most successful real estate developers in Nashville, set down his fork slowly. The confusion on his face was genuine. "The property in Franklin, the one we set up in the trust when you turned 18, you should have moved in 5 years ago." 5 years. I was 23 now, had been sleeping on friends' couches, working double shifts at a diner, taking night classes at community college. 5 years of scraping by, and there had been a house sitting empty with my name on it. My 16-year-old cousin Sophie broke the silence. "Rachel, you really did not know about the house?" Her voice was small, scared. The dining room in my grandfather's Belle Meade estate could have heard a pin drop. 23 family members sat frozen around that massive oak table, their Thanksgiving dinner forgotten. My father, Mark Hartley, had gone from purple to gray. My mother, Diane, would not look at me. "Dad," my Aunt Linda said slowly, her voice sharp as glass, "tell me you gave Rachel her property papers when she turned 18. My father opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again. Nothing came out. "Mark," my grandfather's voice had dropped to a dangerous whisper, "where is my granddaughter's house?" The explosion came from my Uncle Thomas, the family lawyer. "You sold it. You sold it, did you not? That is why you suddenly had money for that ridiculous boat 3 years ago." My world tilted. The room spun. I gripped the edge of the table so hard my knuckles went white. "You sold my house?" "We can explain," my mother finally spoke, her voice cracking. "We were going to tell you." "When?" I stood up so fast my chair fell backward. "When were you going to tell me that you stole a house from me? When I was 30? 40? Never?" My grandfather stood too, all 6 feet 4 inches of him, still commanding at 76. "Mark, my study, now. Dad, please. Now." They left. The dining room erupted. My aunts were shouting over each other. My uncles were pulling out phones, making calls. Sophie came around the table and took my hand. Her mother, my Aunt Linda, was already on her laptop pulling up property records. "Here." Linda turned the screen toward me. 1247 Carlisle Lane, Franklin. 4 bedrooms, 3 baths, pool, 2 acres. Purchased by the Hartley Family Trust when you were 18. Sold 3 years ago for $870,000. $870,000. I had been eating pasta with butter for dinner. I had been wearing the same 3 outfits on rotation for 2 years. I had dropped out of nursing school because I could not afford the textbooks, and my parents had stolen nearly $1 million from me. If you are watching this from Nashville or anywhere in Tennessee, let me know in the comments. I need to know I am not alone in feeling like my whole world just cracked open. The trust was ironclad. Thomas was saying, pacing now, phone pressed to his ear. They should not have been able to touch it. The only way. He stopped. His face went white. Unless they forged the signature. "They would not," someone said. But looking at my mother sitting there, tears streaming down her face, makeup running in black rivers, I knew they would. They did. My grandfather returned 40 minutes later, alone. His face was carved from stone. "Your father has admitted to forging documentation to access and sell your property. He used the money to cover gambling debts and fund their lifestyle." Gambling debts. The words hit me like physical blows. "How much debt?" I asked. "Enough that he was desperate. Enough that he convinced himself he would win it back and buy you another house before you found out." I laughed. It was an ugly sound. Buy me another house? He watched me work myself to exhaustion. He watched me struggle. He knew I was one missed shift away from being homeless, and he said nothing. "There is more," my grandfather said quietly. "This was not the only property." The room went silent again. "What do you mean?" Linda asked. "I set up trusts for all 6 grandchildren, properties throughout Tennessee, each worth between 700,000 and 1 million. Sophie has hers. So does James. And Michael." He looked at me. "Rachel, you had 2 properties. The house in Franklin and a commercial building in East Nashville currently leased to 3 businesses. 2 properties. My parents had stolen 2 properties. The commercial building is still there?" Thomas said, looking at his phone. "Still in the trust. They could not forge everything apparently, but the rental income." He looked sick. "The rental income has been redirected to an account in Mark's name for 5 years. 5 years of rental income from 3 businesses. My mind could not process the numbers. It was too much. It was theft on a scale I could not comprehend. How much? I whispered. Approximately 11,000 per month, Thomas said. So roughly 660,000 over 5 years. Together with the house, my parents had stolen nearly $1.5 million from me. I stood there, 23 years old, in my cousin's hand-me-down dress, because I could not afford anything nice for Thanksgiving, and realized my entire adult life had been unnecessary suffering. Every double shift, every skipped meal, every night I lay awake worried about making rent, all of it engineered by the 2 people who were supposed to protect me. "We are calling the police," Linda said. "No." My grandfather held up his hand. "First, we do this properly. Thomas, I want every document, every transfer, every forged signature. We build the case completely. Then we give Mark one chance to make this right before we involve law enforcement." "Why?" I asked, my voice hollow. "Why should he get a chance?" My grandfather looked at me with something like pride. "He should not. But I want to see if he has enough spine to face what he has done. And I want you to decide his fate, not me." The rest of Thanksgiving dinner was abandoned. The family scattered into war councils. Thomas and 2 other lawyer cousins huddled over laptops. Linda was on the phone with a forensic accountant. Sophie stayed by my side, holding my hand like I might disappear. My phone buzzed. A text from my father. "Please let me explain." I deleted it. Another. "We never meant for it to go this far." Deleted. A third. "Your mother is having a panic attack. Please." I turned off my phone. By midnight, Thomas had everything. The forged signatures, the fraudulent sales documents, the redirected rental income. It was all there in black and white. My father had not just stolen from me, he had done it methodically, systematically, for years. "The commercial property alone generates enough that you could have been living comfortably," Thomas said. "You never needed to work those jobs. You could have focused on school." I thought about the night I fainted at work from exhaustion and malnutrition. The manager had sent me home without pay. I had cried in my car for an hour, then gone to my second job anyway because I needed the money. All while $11,000 a month was being deposited into my father's account. "I want them to pay," I said quietly. "I want them to understand what they took from me." My grandfather nodded. "Then they will." The next 3 months were a blur of legal proceedings. We filed a civil suit first. Fraud, embezzlement, theft. The dollar amount made it a felony. My father tried to negotiate, offering payment plans, promising to make it right. But how do you make right 5 years of stolen life? The story hit the Tennessean newspaper first. Local developer's son embezzles daughter's $1 million inheritance. Then News Channel 5 picked it up. Then it went national. My parents' house was surrounded by reporters. My father lost his job at the investment firm where he worked. No one in finance would touch him after that. My mother gave an interview claiming I was an ungrateful daughter, that they had raised me, supported me, that the money was rightfully theirs. The internet destroyed her. Someone found her Instagram, full of vacation photos, designer bags, expensive jewelry, and created a split-screen video with photos of me in my work uniform at the diner. It went viral, 3 million views in 2 days. If this story is making you as angry as I was living it, hit that like button. Stories like this need to be heard. The criminal charges came next. The district attorney, after seeing the evidence, charged my father with forgery, fraud, and embezzlement. The trial was set for spring. I moved into the commercial building in East Nashville. There was a small apartment on the top floor that had been used for storage. My grandfather paid to renovate it, and within a month I had my first real home. Below me, a coffee shop, a vintage clothing store, and a small art gallery paid rent. My rent, finally. The trial was brutal. My father's lawyer tried to paint me as vindictive, ungrateful, manipulated by my wealthy grandfather. But the evidence was overwhelming. The forged signatures, the falsified documents, the systematic theft. My mother testified that it was all a misunderstanding, that they had always intended to tell me, that they were managing my assets until I was ready. But under cross-examination, she admitted they had used the money for vacations, cars, clothes, gambling debts. She admitted they had watched me struggle and said nothing. The jury deliberated for 2 hours. Guilty on all counts. My father was sentenced to 3 years in prison, 2 suspended, 1 to serve. He would be out in 8 months with good behavior, but he was now a convicted felon. His life, as he knew it, was over. My mother was not charged, but she might as well have been. Their friends abandoned them. The country club revoked their membership. They lost the house to foreclosure because without the stolen income, they could not afford the mortgage. They moved into a one-bedroom apartment in Antioch, the kind of place I had looked at when I was desperate. The civil suit settled out of court. Insurance covered some of it. My grandfather covered the rest to make me whole. I suddenly had $1.5 million in my account. Money that had always been mine but felt surreal to actually possess. I went back to school. Not community college this time, but Vanderbilt. Full-time, no jobs on the side, just focusing on my education. I studied business and nonprofit management. I wanted to understand money, how it worked, how it could be stolen, how to protect it. My cousin Sophie and I became close during this time. She was dealing with her own realization that her parents had been complicit in hiding the truth from me. Not actively, but they had known something was wrong and stayed silent. She chose me over that silence, testifying in court about conversations she had overheard, moments when my parents had let the mask slip. A year after the trial, I saw my mother at a Kroger in Green Hills. She looked older, grayer, smaller. She saw me and froze, a box of generic cereal in her hands. "Rachel," she whispered. I could have walked away. Should have, probably, but I stopped. "I know sorry means nothing," she said quickly, words tumbling out. "I know we destroyed everything. I know you hate us. You should, but I need you to know that I do love you. I always loved you. We just got so lost in our own problems that we convinced ourselves." She stopped. "There is no excuse. We stole from our own daughter. We watched you suffer and did nothing. I will regret it every day for the rest of my life." I looked at this woman who had raised me, who had sung me lullabies and kissed scraped knees and then stolen my future. "I believe you love me in your way," I said finally. "But your love was more poisonous than other people's hate. At least with hate, you know where you stand." She started crying. I walked away. My father wrote me letters from prison. I read the first one. It was full of self-pity and justification. I burned it and the rest unopened. With my inheritance finally in my hands, I could have done anything. Traveled, bought fancy cars, lived the life my parents had stolen to achieve. Instead, I started a foundation, the Hartley Housing Initiative, providing housing assistance to young adults aging out of foster care or escaping abusive families. Young people who, like I had been, were one paycheck away from disaster. My grandfather matched my initial investment. Within 2 years, we had housed 70 young adults, helping them get on their feet, finish school, start careers. Every success story felt like reclaiming a piece of what had been stolen from me. Sophie joined the foundation after graduating, bringing her social media savvy to spread our message. She never forgot that Thanksgiving, she said. Never forgot watching my world shatter and rebuild in real time. My father was released from prison on a Tuesday in September. He had served 8 months. I knew because Thomas kept me informed, making sure I would not be caught off guard if he tried to contact me. He did not try. I heard through family that he was working at a car dealership in Murfreesboro, living with my mother in their apartment, keeping his head down. Part of me wanted to feel satisfaction at their fall, but mostly I felt empty. They had traded my future for temporary luxury, and now we all lived with the consequences. 5 years after that Thanksgiving dinner, I was invited to speak at a conference on financial abuse and family fraud. I stood in front of 300 people and told my story. Afterward, a young woman came up to me, crying. Her parents had done something similar, she said, drained her college fund for their lifestyle. She had thought she was alone, that she was crazy for feeling betrayed. "You are not crazy," I told her. "And you are not alone. What they did was theft. Even if the law does not always see it that way, you have every right to your anger." Subscribe if you want to hear more stories about overcoming betrayal and building something better from the ashes. That became my mission. Not just housing assistance, but advocacy for financial abuse victims, particularly when the abusers were family, because family theft is still theft. Family fraud is still fraud. And the emotional manipulation that comes with it, the gaslighting, the guilt trips, the "but we are family" defense, makes it even more insidious. My grandfather passed away last year at 81. He left me everything. The estate in Belmead, his real estate portfolio, his fortune. Billions of dollars that he had built from nothing, now mine to shepherd. At the reading of the will there was a letter. "Rachel," it read, "you could have let bitterness consume you. Instead, you chose to build. You took the worst betrayal and transformed it into purpose. You are the heir I always hoped for, not because of blood, but because of character. Make them all proud." I sold the Belmead estate. It was too big, too full of that Thanksgiving memory. Instead, I bought a modest house in 12 South, walking distance from the coffee shop I used to work at. Sometimes I go in there, order a latte, and remember the girl who used to steam milk until her feet ached, never knowing she was already wealthy. The Hartley Housing Initiative has expanded to 10 cities across Tennessee. We have housed over 500 young adults, provided job training, educational support, and most importantly, stability. Every one of them is a small victory against what was stolen from me. Last month, I got a call from Thomas. My parents had reached out through a lawyer. They wanted to know if I would consider mediation, if there was any path toward reconciliation. I thought about it for a long time. Talked to my therapist, to Sophie, to Linda. Everyone had different opinions, but ultimately, the choice was mine. I agreed to one meeting. Neutral ground. A mediator present. Clear boundaries. They looked so old. My father's hair was completely gray. My mother's hands shook. They had prepared statements, apologies, explanations. The mediator let them speak. When they finished, I said what I had come to say. You were my parents. Your job was to protect me, provide for me, prepare me for the world. Instead, you stole from me, lied to me, and watched me suffer for your gain. You broke something fundamental between us that can never be fully repaired. I have built a good life despite what you did. Not because of it, I do not forgive you. I may never forgive you, but I also do not hate you anymore. Hate takes too much energy, and I have better uses for mine. This is goodbye. Do not contact me again. Live whatever life you can build with what you have left, but live it without me. I stood up and walked out. They did not try to stop me. That was 6 months ago. I have not seen them since. I heard they moved to Georgia, starting over where no one knows their story. I hope they find peace, or at least the absence of chaos. But that is their journey, not mine. Mine is here, in Nashville, running the foundation, changing lives, proving every day that you can take the worst thing that ever happened to you and turn it into something meaningful. My parents stole money, property, and 5 years of my life, but they could not steal my future. That I built myself. If you are watching this and have experienced family financial abuse, know this: you are not crazy. Your feelings are valid. What they did was wrong, no matter how they justify it. You deserve better, and you can build better, even from the ashes of betrayal. That Thanksgiving, sitting at my grandfather's table, my world ended, but sometimes endings are really beginnings in disguise. Sometimes you have to lose everything you thought you had to discover what you are truly capable of building. The house in Franklin was sold to a young family. I drive by sometimes and see kids playing in the yard, bikes in the driveway, life being lived. It is not my house anymore, never really was, but seeing it full of happiness instead of secrets feels like its own kind of justice. My commercial building in East Nashville has become a community hub. The coffee shop hosts open mics. The vintage store provides free professional clothes to people starting new jobs. The gallery showcases local artists who could not otherwise afford exhibition space. It generates income, yes, but also generates something more valuable: community, connection, hope. That is the real revenge against what my parents did. Not their imprisonment or bankruptcy, though those were necessary consequences. The real revenge is living well, fully, generously, building the life they tried to steal, and then making it bigger than they ever imagined. Every young adult we house through the foundation is a small victory. Every life changed is proof that their betrayal did not break me. It reformed me, like pressure forms diamonds, into something harder but also brighter. The money was never really about the money. It was about trust, safety, and the fundamental belief that your parents will protect you. When that breaks, it changes you forever. But change is not always destruction. Sometimes it is evolution. I am Rachel Hartley. I am 28 years old. I survived financial abuse, family betrayal, and years of unnecessary poverty. I took those experiences and built something meaningful from them. Not despite the pain, but because of it. Pain can be a teacher if you let it, showing you exactly how strong you really are. If my story resonates with you, if you have felt the sting of family betrayal or financial abuse, know that you are not alone. Your story matters, your pain is valid, and your future is still yours to build, no matter what they took from you.